Doc.
Hello. Welcome to this week's Biz Doc Podcast. Well, no banks failed over the weekend. That was pretty good. That's sort of an interesting thing, but we have a bunch of things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about commercial real estate. We have some things happening on YouTube, a shift to what device people are actually watching YouTube on, which is very interesting. We're going to talk about what's happening to salaries now. Remember, not too long ago, people used to in the middle of COVID say, I want to work from home and I got to bring my dog to work and and I want, I want an allowance for dog food. Remember all that? Or I'm going to go across the street and I want a 15% raise. All that stuff was going on. And we're going to go look at that because that has come to a roaring halt. Maybe not a roaring halt, but certainly a halt in a lot of companies. We also have, I'm going to dive into a couple questions. So if you got questions, get them in the super chat. Get them to Kellyanne. Kellyanne right here, the Swiss Army knife, pulling charts, running clips, watching the chat all the while I take you through this stuff. But it's all good. And we're also going to do maybe a little case study, like a little dive into Instacart, what's going on. We know who Instacart is. They've got some serious issues going into the IPO, and we're going to compare that to like Uber Eats and a couple other things that are going on, and DoorDash. Very, very interesting. Hey, just like everything else in life, you can look at all companies, all oil companies, all lumber companies, all housing companies, and inside each sector, there's great leadership and companies doing well, and there's companies aren't doing so well. And that is exactly what's going on with DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Instacart. With Instacart, looks like in the eve of their IPO, maybe, not having a whole lot of fun. Anyhow, this past week, Miami Grand Prix was here. It was great fun. And so we're rocking the Ferrari colors this week. Many of you ask about this, got some questions. I love Formula One. I love the teamwork, the technology, everything goes in there. And I have a huge collection of Formula One team shirts, not t-shirts, team shirts. And many of them, like you've seen some of my Williams shirts, they actually have a guy's name here, Pete or Zevi. And it says, who is Pete and Zevi? Well, that's the guys that I got the shirt from that were actually part of the team. But anyway, that's what's going on this week. So let's roll right into it. Anything interesting? Did you get out? Did you get out this weekend and get into the traffic that was around the Grand Prix, or did you?
Everything was crazy. The Hard Rock was busy. Around Miami, it was busy. Everybody was very excited for Formula One. Lots of celebrity sightings. Tom was there. It was very cool to see to hype and learn more about it, for sure.
Really good. You got a tip of the hat to Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami, and everybody else that worked on there, all of the economic development committees and everything that made this thing come to life. This is second year in a row. And if I was looking at it, I saw that total attendance was just under 300,000, wow, which is pretty amazing. So that's a 3-day total, counting the people that came each day. A lot of people came 3 days in a row. But the big crowd was on race day Sunday. But a great showing from Miami. Just like when there's Super Bowls down here, they put on a show and they know how to do it. And this was no different. But anyway, meanwhile, reality is happening. You wake up on Monday and back to reality. So what do we got? 16 years. What is significant about that number? 16 years. That means there are people today getting their driver's license that the interest rates today have been lower at every part in their life except the day they were born. The day they were born, the interest rates were this high, but then they dropped, and they haven't been back for 16 years. That's how long. If you had a baby 16 years ago and you got your baby or your son getting their driver's license, you haven't seen interest rates since the day they were born. They're this high. But nonetheless, they're back. So the Fed, and everybody watch the PBD podcast, I make that corny little joke about Jay Powell, Fed chair, heading upstairs to see the cheerleader and put another quarter point on the American economy. But what was interesting about this, and we're going to talk about this in, again, news you can use. What do we do with this, Biz Doc? What does all this mean? Let me give you a forecast and let's talk about it a little bit. So first of all, the interest rates now are 5 to 5.25 from the Fed. So when the banks borrow money from the Fed, or there's things that are tagged to the Fed rate, that's the number we're talking about. And so that has an impact on everything. Has an impact on credit card interest rates, even though those are 25 and 30%. Nonetheless, the money from the Fed that they borrow, because when you use your credit card at Shell, Visa has to give money to Shell. minus that little 2% or whatever to Visa for using the credit card. So you spend $100 on a tank of gas for your big SUV, which, my gosh, it is $100 to fill an SUV these days. Visa gets a little percent. Well, they may be charging you 25% on your credit card, and Lord God, I hope you're not paying for your gas with credit cards you're not paying off at the end of the month. I hope you're paying it off and getting your points so that maybe you can do something this summer, have a vacation, have a couple airplane tickets that maybe you can get one of them just bought on points for free or something. But nonetheless, they get their money from the government, overnight funds rate, and you've got this Fed rate there. That's part of what dictates this whole ecosystem of money. But anyway, so now it's there, and interest rates on mortgages sitting here at 6.5 for a 750 credit score for like a $350,000 mortgage. So you bought like a $450,000 house, put $100,000 down from selling your condo, I suppose, and that's what your interest rate is. So what is happening from here? People are saying, man, I can't afford to buy a house, and I've also got, you know, equipment loans, construction loans, a lot of other loans that are connected to my business that I am also getting hit pretty hard on. So let me tell you what I think. It's gone up a quarter point thanks to the Fed, but the Fed did not say things when they were raising it a quarter, because the Fed gives a couple paragraphs of carefully worded statements, and then they take the press through telling them what each statement means. But they did not say, oh, we think it's all just going to be flat from here over the summer. Nope, they said we're still watching the economy and some additional firming, and when they say firming, it means interest rate increases may be needed. And they get together every 6 weeks. So anyway, if you could put a little Biz Doc Forecast up, a little white box there, I want to take you through it. So here's my forecast. So right now, 5.25, I think that's our peak. Now, I don't think it's going to plummet down and we're suddenly going to have a super Merry Christmas. I don't think it's going to get there, but I think life is going to get gently better. And that's the word here, is gently better. So for your business, for yourself, whoever's listening and what you're thinking about doing, here's the Biz Doc Forecast. I think the 5 to 5.25% federal interest rate, I think that's the peak. And from here, the Fed will get together on June 13th and 14th. I think it'll be flat. I think there'll be enough going on in the economy. They'll say no need to raise it, but things aren't good enough to lower it. Flat. I also think July 25, 26, flat. I also think September 18th, 19th, flat. Now, why do I think flat? Well, the jobs report just came out, and the jobs was a little better than people anticipated. And normally when the Fed raises rates, unemployment goes up, which reduces the number of dollars that are spent on goods and services, which helps calm inflation. So to calm inflation, sometimes there's a painful effect on certain workers in certain industries where there's layoffs and unemployment ticks up. That's bad for those people as the economy heals. But October 31st, November 1st, I think maybe the Fed cuts 25 basis points or a quarter point, maybe. However, I believe November, you're going to see statistics that confirm the start of a mild recession. This is my forecast, and there's a lot of economists are right there with me that say that would indicate that a Q4 to Q1 recession, slides down a little bit the economy, finally ending with December 12th and 13th, there will be, I believe, there will be a Fed cut. But that's what I see. A flat summer as inflation is gently going down, but jobs are better than expected. So the Fed's going to say, that looks good to me for now. I'll leave it be. I think that's what's going to happen on the next 3 Fed meetings over the course of the summer, and those are the dates of the meetings. So you can put those on your calendar right now, put them in your Outlook as little reminders, especially if you're running a company, you're going to be talking to your bank about financing. Those dates are going to have an effect on your bank's policies for financing. Maybe you're getting equipment leases, maybe you're getting a loan for your business. Whatever it is, those are key dates. Finally, in November, we're going to hear recession is here. I think it's going to be a mild recession, but there's going to be a lot of woo, and people kind of freaking out in the news media and stuff about it. Recession, recession, recession. The administration, the president always tries to make it sound not so bad. all the people that are on the other party are going to make it sound like, the sky is falling. But I think it's going to be mild, but a necessary end to what's happening here. And finally, December 12th to 13th, the Fed gets together for the last time during this calendar year, and I believe there will be a 25% cut. So it's not until next year where things start getting better. So you've heard my application for businesses where there's going to be loans and where you're going out there and you're trying to raise money. You just heard, my assessment of that. Right now, let's go take a look, because there's been a lot of, and I don't want to use the word, BS. I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm trying to keep my mouth cleaner. And it's hard to when you read economic stats. It almost forces you to curse. It's like almost impossible not to curse when you start looking at economic stats and look at what the news media or politicians are saying about them, because you just want to just scream, bovine excrement. You people are just telling stories to the working people that are out there running the real country. So let's take a look here. A very simple little way to look at this, and I found this was alarming, came from Bloomberg and a survey of household expenses. You ready for this? Each one of those orange lines, and if you're driving in a car or you're listening later on a just podcast on Stitcher or Spotify, I'll walk you through this. This is a chart that shows what percent of people answered in the following way this question. If there was an emergency expense of $400 and that was difficult for you, how would you be able to manage or afford to pay a $400 emergency expense? Let me give you an example. You go to an emergency room because your son sprains his ankle really bad. You weren't sure if it was cracked or broken. You want to have an x-ray. It's a Sunday afternoon. He was playing soccer. You go to the emergency room. You go to urgent care. And there's a deductible you pay. You are going to pay something, even if your health insurance can pay the rest. That could be $400. Then your daughter comes home, the 16-year-old I mentioned a minute ago that is now driving. It had been 16 years since the interest rates. She comes home, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I was backing out at Target and I hit this pole, and you go back and look, and the back of the car is a little munched in, and then one of the fenders munched in. You're going to have to go to a body shop, and you've got $500 deductible on your car insurance. There you have two examples of unexpected expenses that can happen to a normal, everyday American family. Now then, let's go take a look. What percent said, oh, I have a checking or savings account, I can pay with cash, I have a little left over? 35% said they had the cash. That means 65% do not have enough cash in savings, or maybe a small second emergency account, like a little savings account meant to be just for emergencies. You get about $1,000 in there or something. 65% don't have that. So 35% said, I have a savings account or checking account, I will pay it cash. Second group, 31%, I have to use a credit card. I don't have the cash, but I'm pretty sure I could pay it off the next statement because I'll know I've got the excess coming on the statement and I'll prepare myself to pay it off. 31%. So it's almost like a third. Let's just call it that. 35%. We'll round it to a third. 1/3 said, I have the money, I'll take care of it. 1/3 has said, I got to put on a credit card, but I'll set myself up and I'm pretty sure I pay it off the next statement. Then 1/3 does not have the cash and cannot pay it off on the next credit card statement. 20%, 1 in 5 said, I got to put on a credit card, but I'll have to pay it off over a couple months, a little at a time. And 17%, I can't pay for it at all. I don't have a credit card. I don't have anything in savings. 13%, I'm just going to have to borrow it from a friend or family member. Hey, Mom, my son, the ankle, urgent care. Grandma helps out. Ready for this? 8%, so almost 10% said, I got to sell something on eBay. I'll probably sell something. I'll sell a couple pair of sneakers. I'll sell clothing, but I got to sell something. And I probably have to turn to eBay or Craigslist to sell some things to make the money back, maybe that I borrowed from my mom. 6%, and then 4%, another 10%, I'll put this together, 6 and 4, they said, I need to get a bank line of credit. Now, a little small bank line of credit or a payday loan. In other words, these people are about to pay probably 20% interest on this. And that's probably, actually, they could pay more than that. It could be 30 or 40% the way some of the payday loans and emergency loans work. So 10% means they don't have a family member, they don't have a credit card, they don't have cash in the bank. They are going to go out and get the most terrible, expensive money that is out there, which is a payday loan, a deposit advance, a small bank loan if they had some sort of collateral, or a line of credit somehow. They don't have a credit card. 10% there. So think about it. 1/3, I've got the cash. 1/3, I'll put it on a credit card, but I'm in a good enough situation I can pay it off. Then 20%. I got to pay it off over time on a credit card, but I have a credit card. So that's 66, we're up to 86%. So 14% of America are in serious trouble where they have to borrow from a relative, borrow from a family member, sell something, or get a payday loan, which could just make it worse next week because maybe that means they don't put gas in the car and they have to bum a ride from somebody off work. They have to, or something. But this I found this to be pretty shocking. And ladies and gentlemen, remember the number. This is $400. And I use the example of emergency room deductible and a deductible for, a car repair, a body shop repair. That's amazing. So what is the message for all of us? The message for all of us is people's financial situations is their business. But if you don't know where your friends are and you don't know where your employees are, have a little bit of an idea so that I'm not talking about giving them an artificial raise or an artificial loan, but just knowing where they are so that we can care for the people closest to us as human beings and be the kind of a boss that says, this person's been with me for 4 years, has really tough time right now. Maybe we come together as a company, see if we can help them with that deductible for the ankle or something when something happens up. Because we're talking about emergency expenses. We're not talking about people that have not been living prudently. They maybe have been partying or doing a little too much or spending on clothes to feel good and they shouldn't have done that, or buying a new pair of kicks, sneakers, and they shouldn't have done that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people that have legitimate emergency situations. And so if you don't know your friends and family members, and it's not your business, but you need to be close enough that you have a sense so that as an employer, as a business owner in this economy, that we can look out for each other so that they don't slide off the cliff to some really serious situations. And that's my 2 cents here. As a past, I was a business owner, I knew where everybody stood. And I don't rescue people who are doing it with lifestyle or bad choices, but I have had opportunities to be part of something that helped. I was an executive with a company where I'll get emotional if I go too deep into this. We had a wonderful engineer from India, sweet person and sharp, great engineer, good coder. And when I was in Southern California with a company there, and she and her boyfriend gonna go for Las Vegas, see something, always seemed to be prudent. Something happened and they had an accident and she was not wearing a seatbelt. And on the road to Vegas, which is a long, lonely highway that just goes out there, it's like 150 miles across the desert after you get outside of LA. Unfortunately, another vehicle or something happened. They went off the road and lost control, the car rolled, and she was ejected, and she was lost. And we, as a company, came together with some things and sent one of our employees, another individual from India, to India to give her family a financial gift so that they could help take care of these arrangements and getting her home and doing the things that they wanted to do culturally. And those are opportunities that you never pass up. Don't pass up the opportunity to do something like that, especially for someone who's just been a spectacular employee. Now bring it all the way back. These emergency situations happen. Know your people, be ready to make the support you need. But on the other hand, if people are griping and you can see lifestyle things, there's also opportunities to be a good friend or a good coworker or a good sideline and say, I think part of this is on yourself. And you need to keep an eye on it. So I know I just took us from the federal interest rates to what's been happening to people right now, what is the real situation of Americans, after inflation. And this is where we're at. And so now we're going to go to 30% pay cut. Let me show you something else that's happened. And so here's another opportunity, and this one's for you if you are working for an early stage company, or for you if you're a leader or you're building one of those. And did you know there was a sample that was taken at the end of 2020-22? So they just got all this together. And it was like 18 tech companies. And the publication, The Information, did this, and I saw them write it up. I saw this information elsewhere, but I saw them do a very good article write-up. So credit where credit's due. I'm quoting from, but I gleaned some of this from The Information and a separate source. But it was that there are 18 tech companies that have seen some of the median pay. So the median pay, right in the middle, they pay people, drop by 30% in 22. And calculated Q1 of 23 as we sit here, and recently been announced. So what happened here? What's going on? There's some things. And if we could go to the shrinking tech checks chart, there you go. Thank you very much. So what is happening is that the median pay is going down, and it's going down for one reason. Technology companies are thinning the herd, and they're taking the opportunity to have people that were hired in and have less experience higher than what their nominal wage was. Like they had to hire people during COVID. And while they were hiring people during COVID, what was happening was that these folks came in and they said, well, I want, I need 10% more than that. I got to bring my dog to work, and I get certain days of the week off, I work from home. So any day that ends in DAY, I work from home. It's like, wait, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you want to work from home? You just don't want to be here? All of that is gone, and there's been layoffs, and the layoffs were some of the less experienced workers that came in at higher salaries. I dove into this a little bit. So the median is coming back. So in other words, this is like the second Star Wars movie where the Empire strikes back. And what the Empire is doing, take a look here. Cloudflare down 34% from 2021, where people said, if I don't get a 20% raise, I'm going to work elsewhere. And they got it. Snapchat down 33%, Broadcom 28%, Tesla 16%, Oracle 12%, and then Uber and a couple others there, it's only down 6%. I'm not really looking at that because a lot of reasons could be there, so I don't want to pick on them. I want to look at Cloudflare, Snap, Broadcom, and look at that, 30%. So these are some companies that desperately needed workers in 2021, and now you're seeing a decrease in median pay. It doesn't mean they're trying to hurt. What they're trying to do, they're trying to run a company and make enough money to run a company. If you want a bonus, pay the company so the company with profits so the company can pay you a bonus. If you want additional benefits, pay the company so it's got the profits to offer additional benefits. And I know what you're going to say. Some companies make ridiculous profit over the top and they never pay a stock dividend. Okay, maybe there's opportunities for those companies to do things a little different, like pay a dividend or do some stock buybacks to help everybody's options. Okay, I'll give you that. But when you look at it on an isolated basis with some frontline tech companies from 21 to 22, I think the conclusion and everything I read pointed to, party's over, folks, party's over. The median income has come back. Now, why is that good and bad? Well, number one, it's now protecting the rest of the people at the company from future layoffs. But number two, it also means that, not everybody probably got an interesting raise, to help offset the cost of inflation and a gallon of gas and all that goes with it. But I thought that was very, very interesting. So what does it mean for all of us? Well, for all of you, it means that you may be able to go back to looking at Glassdoor and Monster.com at the average salary out there in your area and being able to pay a nice average to people coming to work for you and then giving them space in the normal pay range there so that they could earn raises each year, and they've got what we call runway. If I can only afford $80,000 for a certain engineer, and because of the market conditions, I'm getting held at gunpoint, I got to pay $75,000, I've got nowhere to help them come up. And you look at the industry and you look at the averages, people are paying about, say, 80 grand for this type of engineer. And you're like, how do you run a business there? You can't stop the merry-go-round and just run the economics on your terms. You're competing with other companies. You're also competing to earn profit with other companies so that you can invest and stay ahead of those other companies and invest in new products. And so what is happening here, in my eyes, is that this return to some medians that were back around 2021 is protecting people still at the companies, and it's giving companies a fighting chance to make the profits, to maybe increase benefits a little bit for everybody else, because we've seen the layoffs, to maybe be able to invest in another product or a product version during this downturn. That's where we're at. And so I think this is not a bad thing. People that are getting laid off, you just got a job, you came in at a higher than normal salary, you got laid off, that sucks. And I feel bad for you. And I hope the economy turns so that you can be absorbed back in to another company that needs a great engineer. But the artificialness that we had in the market rate salaries of 2021, you can't ignore that. It's coming back. Even as inflation chews on things, it's coming back. And so speaking, of coming back down, some crazy things are happening in real estate. So fintech has various segments within fintech, financial technology. You have insurtech, you've got HR tech, which is kind of fintech because it's finance, usually that part of the business, and you also have real estate tech. And real estate tech section of fintech has been having a really, really bad time of it. And I found this over the weekend, and this really I found kind of shocking. So real estate, we talked about, is at a standstill. Why? I won't give you the whole story from last week's podcast, but you can go look it up. But here's what's happening. Because the inventory is low, those sellers are reluctant to drop the price of their house. And there's not a line at the door of buyers coming to maybe bid it down or bid it up. Those buyers seeing 6.5%, 6.75% mortgage rates for even people with 700 credit for a conforming mortgage, those people are backing off and saying, well, I really can't afford, the house price is up, and I can't afford, that's the size house I need or I want for my family. I'm just gonna lease or rent another year or stay in my townhouse or my condo. So those people, buyers aren't coming to market, sellers aren't finding buyers, sellers are less willing to put their house on the market right now with what's going on. Guess what? You have a stalled real estate market where new mortgages are down 70, 80%. Pick a market across the USA, down 70, 80% from a year ago. Well, guess what? Real estate is not just condos, apartments, houses for you and me. It's also commercial real estate, which is broken into 3 sections. Tier 1 office buildings, usually in core central cities. Tier 2 and Tier 3 office buildings located everywhere, like the doctor and the dentist you went to is probably a Tier 3 office building. And then warehouse space and industrial, warehouse industrial. So that's a high simplification of commercial real estate. And I know someone's going to put something in the chat, and go ahead and do that if you've got a wider explanation you think will help people. But I'm just saying, just to start the conversation, let's just look at it that way. Warehouse and industrial, and then big, shiny Tier 1 offices, and then Tier 2 and Tier 3 spread around town. Insurance agents, dentists, small medical practice, etc. Well, there's a number of companies that have been out there on real estate tech within the financial tech. And these are valuations. Check this out. Sonder, down 97% of the past year. WeWork, don't even want to talk about WeWork. That was a market crash, and they're down 96%. They're trying to come back. So we'll just set that aside and say, oh, WeWork had its own drama. You had a guy there that was almost about to be SBF or Elizabeth Holmes, but somehow, doesn't get sued by his investors despite what was going on. I think he was just maybe a smart guy, but just didn't run the company very well, but he didn't commit any fraud, we think, so far, I guess. But Open Door, down 86%. Compass comes up like a rocket, 2019, 2020, 2021, coming up like a rocket. We're gonna do things different for realtors, doing a really good job. Glossy, branding. They're off 86% in valuation over the course of a year. Wow. Blend, 96% off. OfferPad, 94, Latch, 93. What this says, ladies and gentlemen, some of these companies may not be around. We're talking about a 96% drop in valuations. Now, that may be holding court and aligning itself with the real estate market, and it's going to come back. But that's pretty crazy stuff. And a lot of these companies still have money in the bank, and so the money in the bank is going to help them get through, this economic cycle. But it just shows you it's not just the housing market we're talking about. It's real estate market. And we saw last week, we talked a little bit about, and on the PBD podcast, Patrick was talking about this amazing building that's on California Street in San Francisco, a highly desirable commercial address. It was a $300 million building. They're expecting offers in the $60 to $80 million range. Hello? 60 on 300? That's exactly 20%. That would be an 80% whoomp. And we were looking at some, 86 for Open Door, 86 for Compass. There you go. So there you have ratification in other parts of the sector that says valuation for companies and large properties, whew, things are happening. So that's where it is. And so what does it mean? Check this out. That means if you're a small business and you absolutely need commercial real estate, there may be opportunities in your town for you to find the real estate you need at a really favorable rate. I would not go 10 years. I would also get favorable terms because they're going to be more amenable to work with you now. Maybe try to get a 5-year or a 3+2. Have an option in there and tell them, say, look, I'm looking at a lot of places. All I need is parking, safe location, access to, food and eateries and conveniences so that my people at lunch can go get the things they need. But this is what I'm willing to do. Be opportunistic, very opportunistic, and be smart. And talk to people, saying, look, I'd like a 10-year relationship with you, but I'm a smaller company. All I can afford to do here is a 5-year obligation. But this is all I'm able to pay. And if they've had that, if the paint is getting faded on that sign at the curb that says, talk to Tyler, about office space here, CBRE, and the paint's looking faded, that sign's probably been there for a while. And you could probably find some real opportunities here. And by the way, that's good for the landlord that finds someone like you, and it's good for you to find a highly beneficial opportunity in commercial real estate for your small business. So this is also an opportunity not to be shy and to take care of your business, perhaps by actually lowering, your lease costs and taking advantage of the environment that we have right now. So, and if you have a small business and you build it up and you get going really good, and 5 years in, and maybe you think about going public, and maybe your name is Instacart. Well, crazy things going on here with Instacart. So in the first quarter of this year, they saw their gross order volume. So the size of orders and the number of orders that you and I are making through Instacart. Instacart, they get the groceries, pick them out, and bring them to you. And you pay a fee for that, but nonetheless, it's convenient. And if you have to order groceries for maybe a relative who's ill and can't get to the store, and you can order a drop-off for your mom, great way to use Instacart as well. Nonetheless, they got to find ways, providing all those benefits, to run a great company for you and me that survives, because there is a market, there is opportunity there. But in the first quarter, the volume of orders only grew 5 to 10%. And this is compared to last year, 2022, which was not the COVID year. So you can compare it to 2019, where, my gosh, they had a 30% increase one quarter because people were locked in at home, didn't want to go to the grocery store, and so they had the groceries delivered. And all of 2022 was a 16% growth year over 21. So Instacart grew 16% in 22 over 21, but they're starting out this year at 5-10%. 5-10%. And they also indicated that the total market last year, remember, this isn't what they got, but that they delivered $29 billion worth of groceries. That's what they're claiming. Now, they only took a little piece of that. And the order volume being down means their revenue is going to be down year over year. But DoorDash and Uber have reported faster growth than 5-10% over the same period. So guess what? Instacart's been out there trying to get ready to go public. And this is an example of falling into the IPO. And it usually doesn't spell good news for the potential or the odds of the IPO actually going through. You're sitting there at a volume, hey, I'm growing 5 to 10% a year. That's not a very interesting growing business. You can find businesses even in this economy growing 15, 20%, invest in those. But that's what's going up with Instacart. And so it's got to be slowing down their IPO, their public debut. And there was some analysis that went with this. People were saying, could they be dealing with the aftershocks of COVID? Because Instacart saw a huge spike in order in 2020. And last January, when Omicron came out. But DoorDash and Uber are reporting 29% growth and 12% growth. 29% growth for DoorDash, 12% for Uber. And so I went and I took a look at a group called Yipit Data, and I always try to give credit where credit's due. And so Yipit Data, it's an analytics provider with access to online shopping data. Let's go take a look here. So this came from Yipit Data and Instacart sluggishness. Year over year monthly growth in the total value of the orders, including taxes and discounts. So this includes taxes and any discounts they gave. So this is the net growth. So in other words, you take any of the maybe funny business out of the numbers, and this is what you get. So take a look at that. We go back here to, this chart starts over there, January of 22, covers full year 22 and the first quarter of 23. So you can't quite see the bottom here. Maybe scroll up a little bit, see if we can see the, keep going. Yeah, there we go. So now we know that this is the sluggishness and this is the orders. And take a look here. So you have a big fourth quarter. You grow into a big, you take a look at that. They grow into a big mid-year, and then they drop, and they grow into a big fourth quarter, but then they drop. And I kind of see similarities to last year, so I would be wondering if this is seasonal. But nonetheless, if the peer companies out there, such as DoorDash and and Uber Eats, are seeing better, that means that this may be seasonal for them, but they're not doing a very good job. Maybe it's seasonal and they're getting hit by the nice folks at Uber and DoorDash. Nonetheless, the good folks in the news media reached out, and I saw a couple times where Instacart said that they wouldn't be commenting on this. Well, here's another lesson for you guys, is this is exactly when I think Instacart should be commenting on this. And by the way, if you can find the screenshot for Biz Doc, I did a case study in Instacart a couple years ago, so you can go look at that as you look at the IPO, and there'll be a gap from the end of that case study to modern time. But hopefully that gives you a picture on Instacart, because there is a market out there. And Uber Eats and DoorDash, you could say, well, it's not groceries, it's Uber Eats is finished food and DoorDash is finished food. True, but the propensity of the American to order things, if you're saying that's only working because people are going back to the store to buy groceries, but they're still making impulse purchases to have food delivered, maybe that's the case, but that is a perfect opportunity for the Instacart CEO or CFO to come to the microphone and say, hey, I don't want to get out over my skis here and say things I shouldn't say on the eve of the IPO, but I do need to say this. And what I need to say is, don't look at finished meal deliveries. I want you to go look at groceries, just groceries, and stuff like this. So do we have the, just quick screenshot. Yep, that's what you're looking for. There's the Biz Doc with a Williams F1 shirt, and that is the thumbnail for Case Studies with Biz Doc, where I covered Instacart. So if you went to watch that, and let's put the link to that with this, that link will be in the description here with this week's case study, so that you can go take a look at that, and then the gap between that and the stories you see about the IPO right now is the part of the story you're missing. And so I may come back, and in fact, let me know in the comments, would you like me to maybe take half of a podcast coming up in the coming months, once it's clear that Instacart is still intending to go out and go public, want me to do a little case study from the end of that case study to here to kind of see where they're at, what we think their potential is? Glad to do it. But I want to put things out there that are useful to you, helpful to you, whether you're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, or a leader in any one of a number of organizations, so I can leave you better than I found you with news you can use to go drive your day and hopefully end in a better place. So speaking about news you can use and drive your day, do we have a couple questions? I think she gave me a thumbs up. They have a question here, so let's go take a look. I love user questions. Thanks for your super chat, and thanks for sending them in.
We've got quite a few. So Anthony Ha was first, and then we've got Clinton K as well.
Yep, so Anthony Ho, down the Ray Dalio rabbit hole on YouTube this morning. Dalio's recent comments, inflation stays at 3%, growth tied to 1%. Basically, stagflation is here. Is that bad? Lie if you have to. I don't need to lie, Anthony. Stagflation is not good. And it represents a real situation where the federal government is fighting, stagnant growth and inflation, which normally doesn't come together, along with, right now we're seeing moderated unemployment, thank God. Well, at least we think, thank God. The labor participation rate is still only about 61, 62%. So that's never good. And we just had Peter Navarro on the PBD podcast 2 podcasts ago last week. And you can go in there, maybe find the short clip that talked about stagflation and Peter Navarro talking about, as an informed economist, what he would have been recommending to a president. And he served one. He served Trump 45 as a member of the advisory group and cabinet there. So go take a look at what Peter Navarro says, because he points out that exactly what Ray Dalio said is a real difficult challenge for the American economy. So that's sort of an economic question. What else do we have? Okay, forget. Daniel Carpio, how do you see the residential housing market for this year? Well, I talked a little bit about at the beginning here. I gave you a forecast of what I thought the interest rates and things are going to look like. I do not think prices are going to start dropping in additional markets until fourth quarter, maybe. I think down here, Florida, you've so many people moving to Florida, it's artificial. But you already are seeing prices coming down. San Jose, San Diego, Phoenix, Tucson. I know it for a fact. I've seen it. They're down double digits year over year. The pricing is down. So it all depends on where you're living. If you're living in a low tax, good climate state, Texas, Florida, raise your hand. And then with kind of, got some winners there, but not terrible winners in Nashville, so Tennessee is there. You probably have housing markets that are not really moving, but you have a whole lot of other places where housing markets are moving. And I would say there's a phrase going, never try to catch a falling knife, right? You get cut and you don't catch the knife. So if you're in a market, you're seeing it drop, you may want to hold back, because if you buy now and then it drops, what you've just lost was your down payment. Because you still owe the loan, and if you have a crisis in life and you have to sell that house and move someplace in a year, you could have just lost your down payment. Like prices are $650, they get down to $525. You buy a house, you put $125 down and do a $400 mortgage, which is about 80-20. Woohoo! But then the prices go down to $560. $525. Then they go down to $460. Keep dropping. And you have to sell your house, and you're only going to yield about $430 on that. You just lost your entire down payment. If you can't stay and you can't rent it, and you're forced to sell, those are traps you don't want to fall into. But right now, depending on where you're in, keep an eye on it this summer. As soon as the Fed drops interest rates, I think you're going to see mortgage rates drop down into the 5.5, 5.75 range, which historically a 5.5 mortgage is not a bad thing. And that may be an opportunity. That's what I see for residential housing. If I had friends and family members thinking about it, I'd say watch your market, number one. Watch the housing interest rates, number two. But above all else, keep your eye on the Fed. As soon as you see the Fed dropping rates, like maybe if there's a little bit of recessionary news, they drop it in right before November or at the end of the year, I think that's what it's going to take to bring mortgage rates down a little bit. I think we have time for one more. So what is the investment strategy when the economy is in a depression? Follow the Constitution where it says gold and silver, crypto. You know, when the economy is in a depression or a recession, usually solid consumer staples are usually strong. Speculative tech usually is not, but usually energy and strong consumer staples usually do well. Airlines, travel, you could probably do well to read some of the things Warren Buffett has said and just say, investing in a recession, Warren Buffett. I would Google that. But number one thing I would say for you is go get smart. And don't play the roulette wheel, during a recession. It is so easy to get hit so hard. Look what happened to regional banks. 2 weeks ago, regional banks were up, but then another one fails. Regional banks are down. Day later, no consumers are going to be impacted, and Apple announces earnings. Boop! Regional banks come back up again. If you were in that mess trying to do little baby short contracts down and then little long contracts up, you could have hurt. You could have been hurt so badly there that you only had $5,000 at the start of it, had $2,000 at the end of it. Yeah, good job. Number one, get smart. Number two, get smart about investing right now. I can't give you a single piece of advice or a stock pick other than to talk about those sectors and to say, maybe just go Google Warren Buffett investing during a recession and find some of the things he said, because the track record of Berkshire Hathaway is pretty doggone good. There was one other question that was in there that had to do with financing your business right now. Well, we talk about this every week. You've got, a couple opportunities right now. And the opportunities you have right now kind of sound like this, is you need to run the best business you can and build strength and muscle as a management team in your business. That's job one. It's not to say, can we raise more money and expand too quickly, because you don't know what the consumption side of the market's going to do for you. And so right now I would say running a disciplined business, running a strong business is job one. That's the most important thing for you to do. And then second, is to, if you have to raise money right now, be prepared. I've had conversations, people have reached out to me on Minect, the Minect app that was developed by, Patrick Bet-David had a vision for it, was developed here by a lot of the staff here at Valuetainment. A lot of people had feedback into it, but it's a standalone company now, Minect, where you pay by the minute for great, advice. And people go into Minect and ask me questions about certain things. If you're specific and you have it down to your stage and give me a lot of background, there you go, then I can probably be pretty helpful with you. You can also find Patrick himself on there and a lot of other great people to answer questions about certain things. But during a recession and during a tough time, run a tight business, build muscle, and go get smart and don't be impulsive. And I think that is what we got. So appreciate the questions. Those questions are always great. I hope everybody learned together. Here on Valuetainment, we have a lot of resources for you. And right now, believe it or not, we just had the Sales Leadership Summit, which was tremendous. Sales leaders and their people came and saw it. But there's something else coming up, and it is the Vault. And we are here August 30th to September 1st. We'll be down at the Diplomat Hotel. Fabulous location. I've heard some of the best room service in the world, and they will be down there getting ready for you. And the vault is where you come together and have a lot of knowledge, meeting people just like yourself. So go check out at thevaultconference.com and see what that's all about, because that is the premier event put on by Valuetainment every year to help people like you come together, meet friends that are walking the same path you walk, and learn from Patrick Bet-David and hear from a list of phenomenal speakers speaking about leadership. And the lead speaker this year, none other than Tom Brady, who knows something about leadership and building new teams after you've been a success, and winning championships with new teams, built after you won a championship with old teams. Talk about a lot of wonderful things that he and Pat are going to cover when they talk together about leadership. But see you at the Vault, and we'll see you every Monday right here, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific, the Biz Doc Podcast. I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.